All right, so I'm recording. So on this computer, this is the remote computer. So if you're coming in for lab time, that computer will be no one will be on it. It'll be available for you. There's a Max patch in here somewhere. We will slowly start cleaning out these desktops, but for right now, it'll be called. If you go to recent patchers, it's just called Stewart Platform Control. I know it's not Stewart Platform. Maybe we'll change it right now. This is just called Motion Platform. There we go. So motion platform control. So what is this doing? It has these custom objects that are called that are part of the fidget library. So we've already installed this. If you want it on your own computer, you have to download these objects and put it in a special folder that's called Max 8 in your documents, and then it will see these objects. These objects, as you see, are sending voltage. So the USB is being sent, serial is being sent over USB. Then the fidget is controlling these three power amps, and those power amps are getting values to or driving each of the belt drives. All right. Some things to note. We're receiving on port 8003. That's just because we've already used some other ports. Doesn't matter as long as you're sending on 8003, it should match. This is on our VPN. There you go. That's the address for us to connect to it. So once you connect over zero tier, you can get on the computer. Um, and then I told you this verbally, but here it is written down. Negative is actually the highest position. The belt drives are extended, and then 8 is actually at the lowest, right? And then let's go ahead. I put in a little webcam here. So if we go to the webcam, there's our little guy. So this is how we're going to teach the class. The first thing to remember is that you need to turn it on. There's actually a green little light on that big scary metal box, and then this actually lights that green light on, saying that it's on. You We'll have it on for you already, but the important thing is that you need to turn it off before you close Max. Again, that might be not something you have to worry about, but if you don't turn it off, you have to then turn off the power switches and turn it back on. It errors out, so nothing's going to break. It just will slow you down by 2 minutes. So if I look down here, let's just do it at one time. All right, there's no sound, so it's not really that compelling. Cool. So hopefully this is working. We'll see. We can. It says device not attached. So this might be because we were just playing with it. Let's see what happens. Is there another patch open? Ah, it's because the other patch was still open. So we just did it. So we didn't turn off. Let's close that. Let's close this. Sure, save. Let's open recent patcher. Motion platform control. Play. Oh, we don't care about the snap camera. There you go. Turn on. There you go. You guys see that move? Okay, cool. So just a slider, right? So this is the front left, right? This one is the front right, -8 to 8, and the back one. So how do we animate this in Unreal? Well, I'm going to show you how. I totally made this up. If you think of a better way, let me know. Share it with the class. I have no ego when it comes to this. I know there's hard ways to do it. With the way I kind of developed it, I think it's really simple. So, or comparatively simple. So we have these little sliders that just to make sure everything's working, right? So -8 all the way up to. What I love about doing this remotely is that people will be walking by like, what's going on? I forgot to put our head back in there. Gary's not riding it today, so I can zero it out. Enter. There you go. So you see there is a little bit of a delay. That's a good thing to know. So ultimately, all we need to do is send data over port 8003 and it we're going to put it on channels, OSC channels, front left, front right, and back. That's what it's looking for. Cool. All right, so that's the remote computer. I'm now on my personal computer. This is how you guys will be working on your local computer. You just bring your project and you run off your laptop. Your laptop will then control um, the the chair. Cool. So let's dive into it. Luckily, we've already done sequencer, so we've gotten a lot of this taken care of. We're just going to kind of dive into the animation. So I already have my caverns. I haven't really taken a look to see my caverns loop up. They might not be, but I do think the cavern is a cavern layout. I'll take a look at it. Otherwise, we might get another map that's also lightweight to play around with. Cool. So I'm gonna filter by levels, and I think we'll showcase. All right, so we definitely have a cavern layout, right? We have a central high production value thing, and we might want to go out into the other things around it and then come back to it. We don't have to go too long. Uh, uh, you know, uh, Again, our finals will only be 5 minutes, so just the idea of doing something in a minute or two is fine for the homework assignment. So we want to do another sequencer and put a camera in there. We've already done a we're gonna do a pawn. A we have a new level sequencer. I'm gonna put this into our My Assets folder, sequencers, and I'll call this one First Ride. Right? And we want to make a blueprint so that it's something that's sending code around a camera. And for us to do a camera blueprint, we're going to create what's called a pawn, something to be possessed. This is something we used when we were doing VR. We had a VR pawn that we had to turn on if we were going to be VR headset with controllers. So I'm going to create a blueprint class, and it's the second most used one. Pawn is the second one. Pawn just means it's going to be owned pawn from the chess term, right? So I'm gonna call this one BP ride PWN for pawn, and then open it up. And the trick for this is that when you throw it into the world, um, I am going to I'm going to close my email so it doesn't make any more bird sounds. Leave me alone. Okay. When you put it in, you can actually tell it to auto possess. So that means that it'll choose it as player zero, or you can throw it to a camera cuts track when we're going to be doing camera cuts, right? A lot of what we're doing now can either be done through interaction code or through sequencing, right? We can do trigger boxes to trigger things, or we can just do an event timeline to trigger things because we know when it's happening. All right, so I'm going to move this into here, and then we'll start building it out with the camera. You see there's a lot of objects in here. I like to put my stuff at the very top. I'm going to make a folder and I'm just going to rename that one and call it 00 ride stuff or whatever. It's that way everything's at the very top and you can find stuff whenever you need to. Right. So all three of my important things, maybe anything that was sending OSC, it's always at the very top by putting it with 00. And you can right click and say move to that folder if it's important. Cool. So inside of here, we need to have a camera. Don't need a cinematic camera, just any game camera will work. Cool. And then when we go back to our sequencer, we can add in a camera cuts track like we've done before and choose it. And we now have a thing in space that's doing something, right? Um, in here, if I come to the camera icon, we can actually lock to our viewport. And up here, it says we're piloting this actor. I can also right click and say pilot this actor. All right, so right, I can say stop piloting it right now, but you can also say pilot. What's cool about this is I'm moving it around and looking at it. This is a great way to animate. You just need to be aware that you're animating it. So you're moving it around. If you don't want to animate it, you need to make sure you eject out of it. And then it's right there waiting for us. Cool. The other decision that kind of goes hand in hand with this is, are you auto keyframing? Every time I move, does it keyframe or do I have to hit the keyframe button? I think it's quicker to auto keyframe. Anything I move, I want it to be keyframed. But if you make a mistake and stay inside of your pawn, then as you move around and you're checking out your scene, you're actually animating the camera too, and you might have to do cleanup. It's up to you to find your own workflow, but those are the parameters: as auto keyframing, auto keyframing, animating by looking at it, or animating it by just looking through it. Right. So if I come here to back to my pawn, what am I trying to do? I want to animate my transform, right? And the transform are locations. So if we start here, and then if I go to the end, one thing I've done here is I've said keep my playhead inside my range. That way you're not animating at negative numbers, and we go up to 5 seconds here. Um, we are animating at 30 frames per second by default. You also want to make sure that your frame rate's good. This is your refresh rate, right? So you have a frames per second that you're animating on, but you also have a refresh rate. This is what was important for VR to make sure that's a high number for VR so that you're having a good experience. It's also important if you're sending data somewhere. Your data is dependent on your frame rate, the refresh rate of your viewport. So if you have a horrible performance, you're going to send a ride that's going to do this on your slow frame rate. So you need to watch performance unless you want to shake somebody and scare them, right? So I toggled on, look at my frame rate right here. And then if you go in your project settings, you can actually go to the yeah, general, and you can set use a fixed frame rate, and that'll make it even more consistent. So now I'm saying always try to make it on 30, and it'll stay pretty much at 30, and that'll be consistent. Just some tips and tricks. So I'm at the end. Let's move it a little bit. And because I have auto keyframe on, right, creates a key when channels are changed. I now have a second keyframe, and you can see that it's going, right? I'm like, well, that's cool. And I can see when with my pawn selected here, I can see what it is in this window, right? I can pin it there. So if I select anything else, it's always there. Or if you find it annoying, you could pin it and take it off. And when you select other objects, that goes away. To take over your whole screen, selecting your camera cuts, and you can watch it. Or lock into the pawn itself, and then when I move around, I've created another keyframe, and I'm actually keyframing stuff, right? So now I want to go over here for my final keyframe, right? Right now I'm only keyframing position, so I might want to also have rotation. All right, so I'm looking at this. Let's rotate that. And now when I change the properties here, I can fast forward next one. I can be looking at something else and looking at something else. Oops, here, and look at something else. Oh, it already did it. So there we go. Cool. So how do we get the data from this? Other things important. First ride, we want to make it on autoplay. You don't have to do that. You can also put it on spacebar, right? Because maybe you need to wait 5 seconds. You need to run to your experience. So bring up your level blueprint. Say spacebar, delay, and maybe you're going to ride it yourself. So you need 5 seconds to get over there. Grab a reference to first ride, and then say play. This would be a very, very taxing way of doing it, but you can do it by yourself. So lock inside of camera cuts, hit play. I said autoplay. Turn it off. Take off autoplay. It doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know what to do. Spacebar. One, two. Running to the ride machine. Running to the ride machine. Gonna get in the ride machine. Strap in. And now here I go. There we go. And now I'm riding my ride. Oh, you saw the little ball there? That's the pawn. I don't know why it does that. You can tell the pawn the whole thing. You could say owner no C. You don't want to do that because we're going to put some graphic things in there. So the other way of doing it is saying on event begin play, say set actor hidden in game, hidden, and that ball will go away. Or because there's no player start, if you add in a player start, the ball will be where this player start is, and just put it somewhere way out of the way. Those are all the ways to get rid of that little ball. Cool. So obviously not the greatest experience just yet. There's only 5 seconds. If I want to make it longer, let's say my ride, I want it to be 30 seconds or 60 seconds for class. Hit enter. I should have hit enter. 60. There you go. So now I have that my red playhead went out there, and I have to drag out the camera cuts to make sure it goes all the way down there. And then maybe I want to pilot my pawn. So over here, right, from my experience. And then ultimately over here, my camera speed I can speed up by using my mouse wheel. And then I want to have my first keyframe copy be my last keyframe. So I'm doing this. My first frame is my last frame, right? Obviously, that's not going to be the greatest experience. Conceptually, it makes sense, right? So what am I going to send right here? I want to be a little further out. There you go. I usually try to divide timelines and do it's very easy to over animate this stuff, right? So I try to do as a few keyframes. I try to do just big ones and then add little adjustment ones. You don't want to make it too crazy. Try to add your first and maybe your middle, and then start dividing it a little bit. Say, oh, is that right? Maybe I just want to do a little adjustment here. Look halfway between, a little adjustment here. Now, all I'm doing really is I'm looking around. I can eject out and also animate this way as well, and see right down there, right? The important thing to note, the most important thing to note is that our experience doesn't have heading. It doesn't know left and right. So a lot of what I'm animating won't be translated to that ride. Literally, the first year I taught this, I had half the groups animated only left and right, and then they plugged in. It's like nothing worked. I'm like, no, it's actually sending the 000 for the entire 2 minutes. You weren't animating it. You have to actually bank into turns, right? So if I'm going forward, let's say I'm going forward here, you want to actually rotate, not that one, this one. You want to bank into turns. Negative, right? You want to rotate into turns. What might be useful for people who do keyframe animation is that there is a curve editor. If I select rotation and then open my curve editor, this is something that you can actually use an entire second window for and really get into details. You can really finesse your numbers. Be like, oh no, it needs to be like that and like that. Get in there. And these are all the little handles on them, so you can adjust how they curve into things. Especially if you're doing something organic, if you have done Avatar, Flight of Passage, or like Harsh's experience with the dragon, you don't just go down. You flap your wings and then you go down. So you might want to go into a curve and then go down. So you want to, there's all these animation principles that we're not even getting into that would be useful for thinking about like telling and anticipation about where you're going before you go straight down, go up first to make down more dramatic, right? Cool. So let's send the data. Um, our ride simulator has three belt drives, and those belt drives are 16 inches apart. Unreal is in centimeters. So 16 inches is actually 40 centimeters. All right. I am going to emulate what's happening over there in here to send the data. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to use these things called scene nulls. They're just invisible, nothing data. But this one's going to be called back. This one's going to be called front right or just right. And this one's going to be called left. They all just need to be on the camera itself, right? So they're all equal right here. Look at my viewport; they're all there at 0, 0, 0. But these things are 16 apart, inches. So that's 40 centimeters. So back is going to go back 40. Left is going to go left 40, and right is going to go right 40. It might be hard to see those items, so or they actually are invisible. You can add just like a sphere um, at point one, point one, point one on these objects, and just zero out the parenting. Let's do another. We could duplicate it, make that zeroed out, and duplicate. These are just visual references; they're not important. The null is what's going to send the data. Cool. So now we have one's back there inside the camera. We're coming over here, double click on it, or actually eject out of it. I can now see, hold down G for game. You can see, it turns off all the game objects. You can see I have these objects, right? And these are relative to the camera. Where the three belt drives are. So I need to be able to get the offset. And what I'm going to do and then send these values over OSC. So I'm going to make a plane, add a mesh, plane. This plane is going to be on the default scene route. It needs to be zeroed out. I think it is. Oh, on default scene route, attach, and then zero it out. All right, so this is at 0, 0, 0. Maybe I'll move it back like 20, so it's in the middle of all of them. Something like that. I forget if I want up here. Here, we'll take a look at it in a second. But I don't want this to rotate. I want this to always be flat. It does two things. It gives me ground truth. It helps me understand where I'm at. If I'm like in space or whatever, I understand where the horizon line is. And then it gives me something that I can subtract the rotation of everything else from. Right? Yeah, you can obviously subtract that from the pawn's world position, but we'll use this plane because as a visual reference too. So I'm going to untick every frame. I want to make this. I want to set the world rotation as 0, and then construction script, which is before you hit play. I also want to do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste this here. So before I hit play, also zero it out. So now when I take my pawn, and no matter how I rotate it, that plane is flat. And you can see I'm making a relative position for all these different nulls. They're moving with the camera. Let's go to local coordinates. The camera, as it rotates, like see those two in the front, they're moving up and down. And now the variance between where those are in our plane is the values we're going to send over to Max. Right? So let's do a little math. Look at the plane. Um, Also, if you guys will give me like 2 seconds to have a little bit of fun, in my materials, I'm going to take this PNG of a rug that I got, create a material out of it, make this masked, put the alpha inside the mask, make it two-sided, go to my plane, rug, and now I feel like I have a magic carpet ride. I don't know, that's just my little Aladdin moment. Cool. So as I animate through, you got a magical little carpet ride. Cool. What's also cool is that when you hit play, oh my God, I have no idea where I'm at. Let's go back, double click on it to find it again. Cool. Let's get rid of that delay. Lock into camera cuts. And when I hit play, another thing that's kind of fun is that you can hit this eject button. Huh. The eject is supposed to let me get out of it so I can actually see what's going on. Let's go to sequencer. There we go. Try it again. Play. Okay, so it's animating. Then I should be able to eject and then watch it. Let's switch this off to autoplay because when you're simulating, you can't actually you can't actually do key presses. And I'll do simulate now. We can watch it animate. That's where it started off. Well, things change. All right, cool. I'm not gonna belabor that. Let's finish the pawn. So we want to get world location. Location, yes. Great. And then we have these nulls. You also want to get the back. Let's start left, right, and back. Get world location. And so these numbers, these left and right ones and the back ones are going to go up and down. We want to take away whatever the ground truth is. So we're going to subtract. Let's split this up so we can get Z. We only care about verticality because those linear drives only go up and down. Good enough. So let's do Z and say minus, subtract, and then minus that one. Duplicate, duplicate. So this minus the plane and then back minus the plane. And then what do we want to do with it? We want to send it over OSC. Um, I want to do that on tick, right? We have send OSC. We looked at pushing and popping, right? We push data. We want to push a float. So push float. And we want to send to OSC. Send OSC. If we're going straight to, you can send it straight to the max patch over there. I'm going to want to scale some of my data, so I'm going to maybe bring it over here locally first, and then I'll send it over there. So send it over there. Duplicate. Cool. Cool. And it's going to be left, right, and back. And then I want to send it tick. I can either create this like little cascading thing, or there's also a flow control node called sequence. And this just shows you the order in which you do things on a single frame. So I can send it also to all these. If I have a specific order I want to send the data out at. I don't. I just was showing you something. Cool. All right, so left, right, 0. Let's go back to our OSC plugin under project settings and make sure to see where I'm sending it. OSC, and right now I'm sitting on port 8001 on localhost. That's 127.0.0.1. Again, I can send this directly to that RIDE machine if I didn't want to do any scaling of data. Um, but I'm going to do it locally at first in Max. So let's bring it in, opening up Max. So I think this thing can just be playing. If we, if you dive in here, you can kind of see the numbers. You can watch them. Right, so the numbers are changing. Right, so we're sending data. It's working and just running. Let's go ahead and log in so I can send you guys compressed code. Again, uh, I'm going to do all this coding as much as I can possibly do. In fact, I will even send you the ride blueprint as well, so you don't have to even do that programming. Save you time. Authorize. Great. And so this one will be called ride. Cool. So let's do new UDP receive. We don't care about the IP, but we do want to what port, and we made it 8001 because we're sending on 8000. And then let's do a little message, and if we hook up to the inlet, we can see data. So I'm getting some data. Don't know what data. First ride. I'm gonna make it loop indefinitely. So now I'll continue to loop. There we go. So I'm getting back. So there's an object called route, and I want to route out the back data under one port. So connect those. And now I'm just getting the numbers. It's stripped off the word back, but there might be some more information in there. Yes, it's also looking at right. So let's do right. And it adjusts automatically. Now the right numbers are coming out here. And then we want to do left. And now we've added one more outlet, and everything that matches left is over here. The numbers look like they're, I mean, right now I'm kind of doing, again, I'm doing heading. But in general, the numbers should be, they could be in the 40s. Who knows? I really didn't do that much rotational stuff. but we can actually take a look at it. Those were objects were called multi-sliders. We used these the other week. I come down here and I want to make it from -20 to +20. I'm using a decimal point to make sure that it is floating point, and then I'm going to make it a bar line scroll. So over time, we can see the values. And let's go ahead and duplicate that stuff. Cool. So we can see the values. We can see what we want to make it in. We want to turn it to, and say new scale. What do I want to scale? I want to scale my incoming values. Right now, I can see that my values aren't really that high. So maybe I want to make these only from like -5 dot +5, and then I want to make it into the 8 to -8 for the ride machine. But remember that -8 is actually high, so I'll put the +8 first. So my low numbers coming in is -5, my high number is 5, and my low number is going to be actually +8, and my high is going to be -8. So I'd make a few of these. And what's cool about this is that when I start sending it to Max, if I feel like I'm not moving enough, I can scale these numbers in real time to adjust Unreal to make it more dramatic, right? So you have an 8 and -8. These things says I can actually adjust in real time what the high output value is. So I can override 8, or I can override the input values and scale these things. So this is why it's good to use Max for prototyping, is because I don't have to recompile. I can just change things and my scales here. Cool. And then ultimately I need to send this on OSC. So we're gonna say new send or UDP send, sorry, an IP address, which was 192.168.192. 208. And then it's on port 8003. Cool. I will send you this IP address over Slack and we'll make a week 6. So 6 fried machine. Cool. Come back to Max, or come back to over here, the remote machine. It is looking for, remember, uh, front left camel case, front right, or I can get rid of that and just call it left, right, and back again. Left, right, and back. Cool. So my Max, I need to prepend, do prepend, uh, left, right, and back. I don't have to make a list because it just is going to be looking for these numbers for routing. So just sending it in here, it works. There's other things you can do. For instance, like um, in Unreal, I can be sending like one year I did things that were falling, like falling rocks. You can put a collision box around your ride machine and trigger when it's going to be hit by things and send that to Max, right? And you can actually like have haptic feedback and shake something, or there's a bunch of different stuff you can do with that. But again, we are animating something, so it'll happen at the same time all the time. So I can also just um, on my sequencer do make a blueprint for events I want to send. So just call this one blueprint VP events. Make sure it's in the world, doesn't matter where. I'll move this to the top so I can find it easier. So that's the very top. If I put it in my sequencer, I can do a track for events, and then go back to my event blueprint, make a custom event called bang that whenever it gets hit, it's going to send OSC, and like this could be haptics, right? We want to shake it. I'm going to say push int. I want to send a one every time something happens on this event track. Then when I make a keyframe, right click on that, and then I can connect it to that custom event. It connects it. So now when I go back by here, it'll send this custom event. So I can make a ton of custom events and send certain things, or I could just keep on copying and pasting the same one, and it'll keep on resending bangs, right? And these bangs can be turning on lights and turning on other things. Cool. So this is going to be connected to our relay. Going back over to Max. Let's go ahead and hit play. So it's doing the thing. It's going to send those bangs. Let's go back over to our Max. Let's add another route for what I call it haptics. If that'll turn on, we'll see. We'll see it later on. So obviously that's another thing that can happen. It's sending this data that's going up and down. There want to bang, right? We got that. And then it should be sending it back over here. Let's go check out the other computer. Oh, look, we're animating a ride machine. Again, I'm doing way too much lateral movement. It's not doing that much. Yeah, it's all. See again, I'm all heading. This is all heading. Let's stop, get in here, and let's watch our ride. Okay, so we're looking up. Let's. How do I forgot which way is. There is a way of doing, well, tilt. But anyway, we can eject out and make sure we're adding a little bit more rotation into here. We'll have to figure out what that shortcut is. So now we're here. Your little Dutch angle. the other way. This should actually make sense. I'm just trying to tech demo it for you guys. You want to lean into turns, you want to lean out of turns. These have different effects of feeling like you're in control. Like when you're leaning into turns, you feel like you're a race car driver and you're in control. If you lean out of turns, it makes you feel like you're out of control and you're on a runaway ride, like a roller coaster. Double click to find it. There he is. All right. Now if we hit play again, we're gonna get some wonkiness that's coming locally to my own max. And then I might realize that my scale no longer works, right? If it no longer works, I need to adjust, either hard code these numbers or put a number box in front of them to adjust them in real time. All right, so if I make this number 20, it's going to be a negative 20, it's going to be a lot more subtle, a lot less numbers. You don't want it to clip because you're going to send values that the ride machine can't do. You're not going to hurt the ride machine. I don't think so. There you go. So now we're animating it. Cool. I didn't look at my notes one time. Curve editor, reject. Yeah, sending, right. Cool. Um, the um only other thing that might be important, I don't know. Sometimes like to add arrows to things. But make it a little smaller. 0.25. Maybe 250. So it's long but skinny. And this way, when you're looking through your ride machine, it kind of gives you a reticule. It gives you a target so that you know where you're animating, where the rider is. And that'll be invisible when you hit play. And then for the Magic Carpet ride itself, you can also say um, plane. You give it a name. Rug. You can say owner no see. Owner no see. And then it's invisible to me when I'm inside of it, when I'm looking at my camera when I'm hitting play. Um, Reject. Why can't I see my little balls? I don't know why. Now I'm back in. Eject. There, it's over there. Cool. Anyway, so that's good enough for me. Any questions on all that stuff? I will send you the BP Ride Pond blueprint so you can just use it. If you want to code it your own, that's fine. It's not that much. It's more. I think it's more interesting for you guys to find a cool map that you want to work with and think about like the vignettes in your story and try to make something that's like 2 minutes long. That has specific moments that you're looking. Think about their attraction layouts. Um, and then I'll also send you my max patch for scaling and you'll have that to go as well. But it's always fun if you want to make it from scratch to get going. Let's see, to own it a little more. So I'm saving all. File save all. Cool. And then now that I'm done, I'm not sending values anymore. I'm going to stop the webcam and I'm going to turn off the ride before I close max. Mhm. No, you're just going to use your own laptop. And then you're just going to send the values over OSC to the ride machine. You do all your work on your own laptop and just show up when you're ready and just send OSC. Everyone be a good neighbor and don't send OSC. Like if this becomes an issue, we'll have to talk about it.